Hello and welcome to This Week in Agriculture. I'm Christopher Holder. This Week in Agriculture is a presentation of the Communications Unit, Ministry of Agriculture. On this week's presentation, we bring you highlights of Agriculture Minister's week of activities. As you know, on Thursday last, he celebrated 1 year in office. We've been seeing the programs highlighting the achievements of the Ministry of Agriculture over the past year, and of course we'll be hearing some of it in this week's presentation of This Week in Agriculture. We will be back after these messages.
Government has committed to assisting coconut farmers across the country in their efforts at expanding their cultivations. This help will come through the clearing of vegetation and digging of internal drainage and irrigation channels. Farmers can also expect help in the form of technical support through NARI and the Hope Estate. Further, coconut seedling nurseries have been established in various regions as part of a decentralization program for nurseries. Coconut seedlings are now available. These are the 5, 3, and 18-month varieties. Farmers are reminded that the recommended number of trees per acre is 50. Persons interested in purchasing seedlings may make contact with Hope Estate on telephone number 663-2709. Once the booking is made, seedlings can be picked up from a nursery nearest you. A message from the management of Hope Estate, Ministry of Agriculture.
Rabies is a disease that is almost always fatal, but is 100% preventable. It is a disease that affects humans and all other warm-blooded animals. The GLDA wishes to stress that a rabies outbreak can result in the deaths of the animals, inclusive of horses, cattle, and small ruminants, leading to economic losses. Further, rabies is a zoonotic disease and can be transmitted to humans, resulting in fatalities. The GLDA is urging cattle farmers, especially those in regions 2, 3, 6, and 9, to vaccinate all their animals that are 3 months and older against rabies immediately and on a yearly basis. A message from the Guyana Livestock Development Authority, Ministry of Agriculture.
Farmers and the members of the public in general are being advised that tampering with drainage and irrigation structures in any way is prohibited under the Drainage and Irrigation Act. So too are practices that result in damage to access dams, such as using an inadequate length of tube to irrigate farmlands, resulting in erosion of the earthen dams. Also contrary to the Drainage and Irrigation Act is the practice of erecting structures or planting on government reserves. This will not be condoned. These reserves are to be clear at all times to provide access for the excavation of the channels. Livestock farmers should also be aware that they are liable for any damages caused by their cattle or swine to dams or reserves alongside DNI channels, as is the case when the animals cross these channels. Individuals wishing to erect bridges across DNI structures should first contact the NDIA before doing so. Those found guilty under the Act are liable to fines and imprisonment for up to 3 months. A message from the National Drainage and Irrigation Authority, Ministry of Agriculture. The HYDROMET Service Ministry of Agriculture is reminding owners of wells across the country that it is a legislative requirement to have their wells registered with the service, be it for domestic or commercial use. Getting your well registered is just a few clicks away. Visit the HYDROMET website at hydromet.gov.gy and click on the Well Registration tab. Fill out the registration form there and then click the Send button. It's that simple. Be reminded that before undertaking the establishment of a new well, a license to do so must first be sought from the HYDROMET department as well as the Environmental Protection Agency. The process for so doing is explained on the department's website. Click on the link for well registration and follow the directions. A message from the HYDROMET Service, Ministry of Agriculture.
Agriculture Minister Zulfikar Mustafa's push to advance the value-added production sector in Guyana was further advanced this past week with the signing of a memorandum of understanding between GoInvest and one of Guyana's successful agro-processing enterprises, the popular Umami Incorporated. This operation is owned by Mr. Chris Basod. The signing of the MOU concretized Mr. Singh's intention to invest in the establishment of a processing facility in Blackbush Polder. This is one of several processing facilities to be established across the country to advance government's value-added drive. Minister Mustafa explained the signing exercise and how it fits in with government's master plan for agricultural development in Guyana.
We are here to sign an MOU so that we can, Mr. Passad is a private investor that will invest in an agro-processing facility in Blackbush Polder. You know for a fact that the government agenda is to have more value-added products, so to speak, and produce coming out of Guyana. Many times we found farmers are doing something called subsistence farming, from the farm to the market. And they are not getting the real deal, so to speak, or the real value for the produce. And we as a government, we want to ensure that we provide the necessary facilities and we help these farmers so they can have more value for their produce. And as a matter of fact, that Guyana takes its rightful place in the region and on the world arena. We know for a fact now that Guyana is heading the ministerial task force that was proposed by His Excellency the President, and we are looking at barriers to remove those barriers that are blocking our produce from exporting to the Caribbean. And I think we have a good opportunity to have our produce now, when those barriers are removed, to export, and we can push exports to the Caribbean and other parts of the world, especially North America. So as a government, with a vision, we are now embarking on these agro-processing facilities. This year alone, we'll be building small agro-processing facilities across the country, almost 7. And then we are working also with the formula, the PPP formula, the public-private partnership formula, where we are having private investors also are building, and we as a government are facilitating these investments. We have Mr. Chris Passad, who will be investing and building an agro-processing facility in Blackbush Polder, because Blackbush Polder is one of the areas that have, we are seeing a lot of agriculture produce coming out from. And many times farmers' produce there are being purchased by middlemen, and they are not getting the real value for their produce. This facility will help the farmers in Blackbush Polder to process their produce and at the same time create more jobs for the citizens in Blackbush Polder. At least for the start, this project is proposed to create about 50 to 60 jobs for residents in Blackbush Polder. Bear in mind that also they will be purchasing produce from the farmers there. And Blackbush has has potential to bring out a lot of produce more. And over the last 10 months, or over the last year, because yesterday was 1 year since we assumed government, we have seen a renewed interest in the agriculture sector. And my friend here, Mr. Ramsarup, can give you the statistic from his organization, from his agency, to show you the kind of investment that we are having in the agriculture sector. Although we are now an emerging oil and gas producing country, and before August of last year, when you ask and you talk about development, everyone was telling you wait until the oil and gas revenue come on stream. Well, as a government, we haven't used a cent yet from the oil and gas revenue, but we are seeing that other sectors are taking off, especially the agriculture sector. And the agriculture sector has great potential, and we are on the verge of having great things to come. As a matter of fact, we were set back by the flood, but you know, last Saturday, His Excellency would have had announced a lot of measures and help to the farmers, where we will help the farmers to go back to the land.
In a brief comment, Go Invest boss Peter Ramsarup said investors are lining up for a chance to invest in Guyana's agriculture sector, and these include local investors.
You know, when our population and our investors align with our president's vision of being a major agriculture producer in the region, you know, the Caribbean imports close to $8 billion worth of food every year. So Guyana, from an investment side, we're seeing a lot of both foreign and local investors. What we're more proud of is that our local folks are stepping up to the plate to invest in agro-processing, in large-scale farming. So our office is seeing a significant increase in the agriculture sector. For the year alone, I think we're in double digits on investments in the agriculture sector. Ultimately, so far, close to 500 jobs will be created in the agreements we have signed in the agriculture area. So it's a pleasure to be here with the minister and our local investor, Chris, and we look forward to working with his team to make sure his investment is fruitful and the benefit to our nation.
The umami boss, Mr. Chris Prasad, in his brief remarks before the signing, said it is an opportunity not only for the promotion of value-added production, but also a chance for the transfer of technology to the farmers of Blackbush.
First and foremost, as a manufacturer of high quality value-added food commodities, we are proud to be exercising our patriotic duty to be part of the rebuilding of the area. Blackbush, as many of you know, is pretty much the heartland for primary produce, so it's also an opportunity for integration into our existing line of products. We also see it as an opportunity to help to transfer technology to the farmers to increase their capacity, to move them from subsistence farmers to implementing a bit more of technology probably on the farms. We're quite excited to commence this project. It's been long in the pipelines. I see ministers just give me the pen, so I think we should move on with it.
Although a final investment amount has not been determined, Mr. Prasad said the facility will be outfitted with a great technology to ensure quality products are produced, since the brand is hoping to add products like canned vegetables to its line of products. He further stated that the products that will be produced will remain under the Umami brand, given the fact that the brand is already known for providing quality products to its customers. On August 6, Agriculture Minister Zulfikar Mustafa sought to advance cooperation between Guyana and China when he met with Charge d'Affaires for the Chinese Embassy in Guyana, Mr. Shen Zailal. During the meeting, the two discussed areas for collaboration in the agriculture sector in Guyana. The agriculture minister briefed the Chinese official on the recent floods and its devastating impact on Guyana's farmers and about government's plan to help all affected to get back on their feet. He also outlined plans for expanding the local fisheries sector, especially aquaculture. Mr. Shen Zailal indicated that China has also been experiencing the impact of climate change, pointing to flooding in one province that was occasioned by 3 years' worth of rain, which fell in just 10 hours. He posited that there were many areas of mutual interest between the two countries and that China stands ready to assist Guyana in its drive to develop and diversify agriculture here. The Chinese embassy official also pledged his country's help in the flood relief effort, as well as in the provision of technical support across the board, but especially in aquaculture and non-traditional crops. August marks 1 year in office for the PPPC government, and for agriculture, it has been a year of great challenges, but also major accomplishments, as we now hear in this DPI presentation.
After 5 years of limited to no developments within the agriculture sector under the coalition government, the PPPC was determined to ensure that the sector received the necessary attention and investments once it had assumed office. From August 2020 to now, the administration has placed high value on the sector, implementing measures within the traditional and non-traditional productive sectors to increase viability, promote a diversified economy, and create more jobs and expand income. In just 1 year, billions have been spent in this critical sector and major developments have been realized. Drainage and irrigation forms one of the most important pillars of the agricultural sector, As such, one of the first actions undertaken by the government was the restructuring of the National Drainage and Irrigation Authority to ensure farmers can benefit from improved services. With outdated and dilapidated structures and pumps being the order of the day, Minister of Agriculture Zulfikar Mustafa was keen to make a change.
The most burning issue in the agriculture sector is DNI, drainage and irrigation. Wherever you go, people are complaining about the state of affairs of our DNI system. As a government, the Ministry of Agriculture has a responsibility through the NDIA. We will continue to work with the various stakeholders. As a matter of fact, we have done thousands of rods of canals and drain since August of last year, right across the country, in all the regions in this country.
Such was the nature of the works undertaken that in 2020, the Drainage Authority exhausted its $1.6 billion budget for capital projects, while over $5 billion was spent for recurrent works. This year, some $12 billion was made available through the 2021 national budget. Pumps were installed at several flood-prone areas. These include Den Amstel, Daventry Castle, Hope, Mora Point, Rose Hall, Princess Street, Sussex Street and Cowan Street. These small but significant interventions by the authority brought immediate relief to scores of residents and farmers across Guyana.
But this place here has been underwater. The neighbors here, their kitchen has been flooded, and they just started to clean this area here now. A couple of days ago, the water started drying.
For the past 3 years, this trench never cleaned. This caused the flooding for 2.5 acres garden. Now, the government or whoever cleaned the trench and have the place dry out nice. I can't make no complaint. I'm thankful for that.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars we lost, right? But I'm glad to the government now that can do something to help us.
First, I must compliment the Minister of Agriculture. He has visited Prophet Rising Sun 3 times since they're in office. With this administration, I have seen a lot of changes because there's a broad cross-section. Everybody in Prophet Rising Sun now is getting benefit on what developmental work they put in place. I have never seen the agriculture minister in the former administration in Prophet Rising Sun. Never ever saw him. I don't even know if that man knows where Prophet Rising Sun is.
Coupled with its investments in drainage and irrigation, President Irfan Ali has also announced that government will spend over $7.8 billion to provide financial relief to farmers who were severely affected by the recent countrywide flooding. President Ali said more than $3.5 billion will be transferred to homestead farmers, kitchen garden farmers, and to households that exclude either of the 2 farms. Homestead farmers will receive $100,000 each, kitchen garden farms will receive $50,000 each, while persons with households excluding kitchen gardens and homestead farms will also get $50,000 each. Farmers who had rice ready to harvest will receive $80,000 per acre. Those with rice sowed and lost in the autumn crop will get $65,000 per acre, and farmers with land completely prepared but not sowed will get $45,000 per acre. Some 60,000 bags of seed paddy would also be given to those farmers. For the livestock industry, assistance would be broken down into 4 categories. Those are subsistence, small, medium and large-scale farmers. Over 2,000 farmers are set to benefit from $600 million in direct cash transfers. Efforts are underway to ensure the country's economy is diversified and food security is assured. Policies and programs have been implemented to promote climate resilient and sustainable production of fruits and vegetables locally. To make this a reality, the government allocated $1.24 billion to the National Agricultural Research and Extension Institute NARI. Through this allocation, NARI has been able to restart its agricultural distribution programs to rural and hinterland communities, which were halted by the previous government. Through these programs, hundreds of packaged seeds, along with seedlings, were distributed to small-scale farmers. Packs of akushi and bait were distributed to farmers. The National Fogging Program was resuscitated. The Fertilizer Distribution Program was restarted. A $335 million Farm Implement Program was launched for Regions 1, 8 and 9. Along with restarting these critical programs for small and medium-scale farmers, the government launched its groundbreaking Intermediate Savanna Development Initiatives, a special project aimed at developing the corn and soybean industries in Guyana. which accounts for over 25% or $10 billion of the country's food import bill. $500 million was invested, and works have started to provide the necessary infrastructure, which could accelerate private investment in corn and soybean production and supporting businesses. Already, 6 local companies have partnered to undertake this massive project that could see Ghana on the path to becoming self-sufficient in corn and soybean over the next few years. Additionally, $70 million has been allocated to support the Hope Coconut Estate Limited, while the government will invest $832 million in agricultural infrastructure, including agro-processing and packaging facilities. A significant aspect of the PPPC's manifesto has been the reopening of sugar estates that were closed on the coalition government. It had also committed to rehiring some of the retrenched workers and offering viable opportunities to the others. In the fulfillment of these promises, $10.5 billion has been invested in the Ghana Sugar Corporation over the last year. These funds are to offset critical works as government advances the sector's resuscitation.
Gaisuku is on a change plan. We're re-engineering the way we're thinking in Gaisuku. The whole vision of Gaisuku right now is to move up the value chain as fast as we can, within the constraints of finances. But in addition to that, in addition to moving up the value chain, we're also opening 3 estates, so it's going up and it's going broader.
As part of the restructuring plans, Gaisuku has reintroduced mechanical harvesting at the Blairmont Sugar Estate to boost its operations. Moreover, the corporation was able to pay almost $900 million to its trade creditors over the past 9 months. About $175 million was paid to the Ghana Agricultural and General Workers Union (GAWU) as it honored debts owed to the credit unions in the industry. The PPPC government maintains that rice is the government's business, and it will work to see the industry flourish. Under the former government, farmers were forced to pay increased land and drainage and irrigation fees, putting a heavy burden on their pockets. The Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali-led administration has reversed these charges and restored them to the original rates. The MMA ADA rates were decreased from $15,000 per acre to $3,500 per acre. This single measure placed an average of $1.3 billion immediately back into the hands of farmers in Region 5.
This is farming is private business. Be so thankful that, machinery do the work. Things which they could not have done in 5 years. I see this administration did it in 1 day in this village.
That is excellent that the VAT come out back. The fee and so on normally was $2,500. And last year they put in on $1,000 more on it for $3,500.
The man said that is what they're going to do, and this is what they're doing. They're assisting us. The cost on every single thing is down. Agriculture equipment is down. Parts is down. Land rental for most of these people in the MMA scheme is down. So people will benefit. And that's basically what people need. More money in the pocket, more spending power for the people on the road. They will buy. A man gonna go and buy 2 tractors now. He ain't got to study VAT.
The government is also spearheading the construction of 6 drying floors at strategic rice-producing locations to provide much-needed support to farmers in regions 2, 3, 5, and 6. And a soil laboratory will be established to facilitate efficient and economic production of paddy. Farmers are also benefiting from the removal of VAT on machinery, equipment, fertilizers, and pesticides, thereby reducing the high production cost. Also, in just 1 year, Ghana secured 2 new rice markets in Hungary and Latvia in Europe, while an additional 24,000 tons of rice is being supplied to Brazil.
The livestock sector needs to take its position. We have land, we have water, we have the climate, we have the human resource, and so we are set to develop the agriculture and the livestock sector as a whole.
An estimated 3,000 to 5,000 small farmers and broiler producers benefited over the past year. From the removal of VAT on key inputs in the poultry industry, the government has also zero-rated the industry. The Ghana Livestock Development Authority has also received its additional certification from the Ghana National Bureau of Standards, bringing it one step closer to offering quality testing and results for the livestock industry.
We have to think commercialization. We cannot think only subsistence agriculture. The days for just feeding our people alone has passed. Now we have to think about export. We have to think about commercialization, industrialization.
Important to the agriculture sector too is the quality of fertilizers being imported. The government has constructed and commissioned a $60.4 million fertilizer testing laboratory.
Today's activity is an identification of the board's commitment to support our developing agriculture sector in Guyana.
The certified facility, which is located at the Pesticides and Toxic Chemicals Control Board, is the first to be established locally and the second within the Caribbean. The approaches taken by this PPPC government have ensured that the agriculture sector recovers from the aftermath of 5 years of neglect and mismanagement. The policies to spur rapid growth and long-term developments are also in place as Ghana looks to become a bigger agricultural force in the region.
Farmers and the members of the public in general are being advised that tampering with drainage and irrigation structures in any way is prohibited under the Drainage and Irrigation Act. So too are practices that result in damage to access dams, such as using an inadequate length of tube to irrigate farmlands, resulting in erosion of the earthen dams. Also contrary to the Drainage and Irrigation Act is the practice of erecting structures or planting on government reserves. This will not be condoned. These reserves are to be clear at all times to provide access for the excavation of the channels. Livestock farmers should also be aware that they are liable for any damages caused by their cattle or swine to dams or reserves alongside DNI channels, as is the case when the animals cross these channels. Individuals wishing to erect bridges across DNI structures should first contact the NDIA before doing so. Those found guilty under the Act are liable to fines and imprisonment for up to 3 months. A message from the National Drainage and Irrigation Authority, Ministry of Agriculture. The HYDROMET Service Ministry of Agriculture is reminding owners of wells across the country that it is a legislative requirement to have their wells registered with the service, be it for domestic or commercial use. Getting your well registered is just a few clicks away. Visit the HYDROMET website at hydromet.gov.gy and click on the Well Registration tab. Fill out the registration form there and then click the Send button. It's that simple. Be reminded that before undertaking the establishment of a new well, a license to do so must first be sought from the HYDROMET department as well as the Environmental Protection Agency. The process for so doing is explained on the department's website. Click on the link for well registration and follow the directions. A message from the HYDROMET Service, Ministry of Agriculture.
Well, that's all the time we have on this week's edition of This Week in Agriculture, a presentation of the Communications Unit, Ministry of Agriculture. This Week in Agriculture is, of course, brought to you every Sunday at this time and is produced for television by Matrix Video Productions and Advertising based in East Berbice. I'm your producer and host, Christopher Holder. Until next time, then, be good to yourselves and to each other.